We have been living in a surreal reality. Who would have imagined at Christmas time that we wouldn't be able to gather with family and friends for Easter? It got me to thinking about that final week. As Christian Baptists, we celebrate Holy Communion once a month, normally the first Sunday of the month. In the Jewish tradition, the Passover was, and still is, celebrated once a year in remembrance of the Hebrew exile to Egypt, from Egypt. Today's observant Jews spend the weeks before Passover in a flurry of thorough house cleaning in order to eliminate any trace of leaven. Each element of the Passover meal is a reminder of the exile. This traditional celebration was what the disciples expected, but that week was the most extraordinarily different experience that they had ever had. Actually, their whole life was different after they met Jesus. They were just ordinary, everyday people. They weren't aristocrats or politicians, just men of little importance. They eventually became itinerant preachers of the word. Their lives probably seemed very surreal for them. Peter would have remembered when Jesus told him and his friends that from that moment on they would be fishers of men. Jesus tried to tell them time and again that he would not always be with them. He seemed to be always irritating the religious elite, the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They probably heard the rumors that these people were trying to plotting to kill Jesus, their rabbi. This was nothing new. Those rumors had been around for well over a year, almost from the beginning of their ministry. As they headed for Jerusalem, they were looking forward to the celebration. But there was something different about Jesus this past week, an intensity to get something done. It was hard to describe it, but it was very obvious that something was going on. The closer they got to Jerusalem, the more intense he became. Just Sunday, when the crowd had gathered to follow him into the city, he stopped at the overlook and he wept. The only other time they saw him weep was when Lazarus died. But he fixed that when he brought Lazarus back to life. Couldn't he fix what was ever going on now? When they arrived in Jerusalem, Jesus raised havoc in the temple. He was furious and demolished the money changer area. And that just made the religious leaders more determined to see him dead. The more they tried to trap him, the more he outsmarted them, and the more determined they became to kill him. All week, every moment was a teaching moment, in synagogue, in a courtyard, at meals, always teaching. Today, he had asked two of them to find a man with a water jug and ask him where they could find a place to prepare for the Passover. How absurd! Men don't carry water jugs. Fetching water is women's work. But sure enough, they found him, and he told them of a place perfect for celebrating Passover. The two prepared the room, thoroughly cleaned, check. The roasted lamb, check. The bitter herbs, check. The wine, check. As evening came, Jesus and the other 10 disciples came for the Seder meal. Things seemed almost normal for a few minutes. Everyone seemed happy and excited. Everyone but Jesus. After they started eating, Jesus got up from the table and began washing and drying everyone's feet. That was servant's job, not a rabbi's. Peter was indignant. Surely Jesus wasn't going to wash his feet. But Jesus insisted, "Unless I wash you, you will have no part of me." Boy, then Peter changed his tune. "Wash all of me then, my feet, my hands, my head." "Not necessary, Peter. You don't need a bath. You are already clean." When he was finished, he went back to the table. With a heavy heart and a clog in his voice, Jesus shared that one of them would betray him. None of them thought they were the one, and none of them gave it a thought when Judas left the room. Jesus only said, "Do what you have to do quickly." They thought Jesus had sent Judas out for supplies or something. He was the keeper of the money, after all. After Jesus left, he took the bread. After Judas left, Jesus took the bread and blessed it, and then he broke it and gave it to them to eat. And he said, "Take and eat. This is my body broken for you." After they had all taken a piece, he took a cup and gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. This is the blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink from this fruit of the vine from now until the day I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. Whenever you eat this bread or drink this cup, do it in remembrance of me." Then he explained what it meant to eat at his Father's table in the kingdom of heaven. Peter, always the first to stick his foot in his mouth, declared his complete loyalty to Jesus, even to death. That's when Jesus told Peter he would deny knowing the Master 3 times that night before the rooster crowed in the morning. After supper, they went to Gethsemane, where Jesus would pray. He asked the disciples with him to wait and pray for him, but they fell asleep. Not once or twice, but 3 times. 3 times he found them sleeping. It is written that Jesus prayed hard, so hard that the sweat like drops of blood poured from him. Jesus prayed that if possible, would it be okay if he didn't have to do this thing? He knew he was going to suffer. He knew he was going to die. Dying puts the fear in the hearts of all humans, even the Son of God. I sometimes wonder what it would be like if Jesus lived longer, but we know it wasn't meant to be. He had to die for us. Judas showed up on cue with the soldiers to arrest Jesus, and things got ugly after that. Peter disowned him, just like Jesus said he would. Jesus was whipped and mocked by the guards. He stood before Pontius Pilate, who found no reason to put him to death. Pilate left it up to the will of the crowd. "Crucify him! Crucify him!" they shouted, and Pilate symbolically washed his hands of it. Jesus, half naked, beaten and bloody, carried the cross as best he could to Golgotha, where the guards nailed him to the cross. There he hung until he died, a slow, painful death. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing.
Oh
And Jesus said, "It is finished."